is on boots and bandages. And there are a lot of different boots and bandages to choose from, a lot of different varieties and styles, and you'll find you have your personal preference, and depending on the individual horse, you might make a choice of boots over bandages. So I just want to go over some of the common boots and bandages to help you make your decision. I have two very commonly used types of boots here. You can see the different types, but what I want to point out with both sets of boots actually is that we always have a shorter boot and a longer boot. And the short boot goes in front and the longer boot goes behind. And you'll also notice that we have these Velcro straps. You always want to be sure that the Velcro straps are on the outside of the horse's leg. So this is one very popular type of boot that you can use. Another very popular type is this type, but the same rules basically apply. We have a shorter boot for the front and a longer boot for behind, and the closure, the straps, the Velcro, goes on the outside of the leg. Now, boots are great if you have a horse that needs a lot of protection, especially when you start doing lateral work like leg yielding and shoulder in and stuff like that, because they could hit themselves. And these are very cushy, as you can see, and there's a lot of protection with boots. But what boots don't give you is they don't give you any support. So you might decide that you want to use a bandage instead of a boot if you have a horse that needs support as well as protection. And we have all kinds of bandages and polo wraps that we can choose from as well. So I want to talk about this one particular type of bandage. And this particular type of bandage, you see it comes in the package like this, and it's very important. We're going to show you in a second how to re-roll this, because you can't take it right out of the package and put it on your horse, because if you do, you won't be able to close the Velcro. It'll be on the wrong side. But this particular type of bandage, you can see it has a lot of elasticity, and there's actually two rubberized straps that run through it, and that helps with the support aspect of the bandage. But it also requires that you put the bandage on very, very carefully, that you have even pressure all the way, because if you have one round of the bandage that's tighter than the other, you can cause all kinds of problems. So you have to be careful with these elasticized wraps. The other thing you have to realize, you can see how thin they are, so you would never put them directly on the horse's leg. When you have a wrap like this, you always need some kind of cushy underwrap, some kind of cotton. You can see how cushiony that is, and sometimes you have the cushiony cottons that have these lines, and sometimes it's just straight, there's no lines at all. But you want something fairly thick underneath your bandage so that you don't cause what's called a bandage bow. So that's one type of bandage that you can use, and sometimes people prefer polo wraps to bandages. And a polo wrap, you can see, has a little bit more thickness, and you can put this directly on the leg. You don't have to put a cotton underneath it. But the same thing applies. It comes out of the package so that the Velcro is on the wrong side. You have to unroll it and re-roll it. And Melissa, maybe you can show us. The wrap comes out. This is my able-bodied assistant, Melissa, here, and she's going to show us the correct way when you take these wraps out of the package and you undo them. Why don't you just fluff that out? Woo! And notice the first thing she does is she puts both pieces of Velcro together. They have to be on the inside so that you end up with them on the outside when you wrap the leg. Then she starts rolling the bandage, and notice what she does. She wants the bandage to be very tight so that when she puts it on the horse's leg, she can have that even pressure all the way around. So if you've ever been deep sea fishing, that's what it looks like to me. You sort of pull up, roll down, pull up, roll down. Stop laughing. Pull up, roll down. Very good. And that's what you would do with both your bandages and your polo wraps. Thank you, Melissa. That was perfect, as always. Now, with the polo wraps, like I said, you have to rewrap it the same way, and then you'd like to store them like this. We put two together and then we fold in the ends, and that way they don't get loose and they don't trail around and have the potential of causing an accident, plus your barn looks kind of sloppy. So this is a nice way to store your polo wraps. So when you think about protection versus support, your boots give you the most protection, but they don't give you any support. Your bandages give you sort of a medium amount of protection and quite a bit of support because of this elasticity. And the polo wraps give you a little bit of protection and not a whole lot of support. So these are some of the common things that you can choose from between your bandages, your boots rather, and your bandages. But I also want to talk about some other kind of bandages so that you don't put the wrong kind of bandage on your horse when you're getting ready to work. We have what's called either stable wraps or standing bandages. They're the same thing. And you'll notice that we also have an under wrap, a cotton, something that's very, very cushy, but this is even thicker than the under wrap that you'd be using if you had a bandage on your horse for work. It provides quite a bit of protection. This is the kind of bandage and under wrap that you would put on your horse if you were leaving wraps on him overnight, because let's say he had a tendency to stock up on a hind leg or he had an injury. These standing wraps or stable wraps are what you would want to use. And notice after you put the cotton on, the bandage is very, very thin compared to everything that we've seen, which once again is why you need the cotton underneath it. And it too has quite a bit of elasticity. So it's very important that you have even tension all the way down the leg. Now, similar to the standing wraps, we have the possibility to have shipping wraps. And the main difference with the shipping wraps is that they're just a little bit wider so that they cover more of the leg. These are a few inches wider than these wraps here, than the standing wraps. But you would use the same kind of bandage over these wraps. And a lot of times, because they can't go quite too far down with these cottons, a lot of times what people do if they're going to ship in bandages, they also use bell boots, because the bell boots allow you to completely cover the horse's coronary band, and then if he loses his balance and steps on himself, he's not going to injure himself or pull a shoe off. So these three things kind of go together. Now, I personally don't use shipping wraps. I prefer shipping boots. And just like the work boots, you'll notice with these shipping boots that we have a short boot and we have a longer boot. And you can see that the longer boot would cover the horse's hocks. And once again, the closure, the Velcro closure should always be on the outside. Now the reason that I prefer, it's just personal preference, I prefer boots over bandages is we do a lot of long distance trailering. And I don't want to take the chance that the wrap is going to twist on the horse and I'm not going to know it for a couple hours until we do a fuel stop. So I know with the boots that he's getting good coverage from top to bottom and I don't have to worry about the bandage shifting. So you can see that we have all kinds of things to choose from, and depending on whether you're shipping or whether you need a bandage in the stable overnight or whether you need something for work, you make your choice depending on two things: your own personal preference and what your individual horse needs. So in a second, I'm going to bring out another able assistant, Justin, and he's going to be our model, and we're going to show you exactly how to put on these boots and bandages. With another able-bodied assistant. This is Justin, and he's going to be our model, and Melissa's going to demonstrate, and Ruth, who's off camera, is going to direct us with this bandaging and booting process. So let's get started. Take it away, Ruth.
All right, Melissa, let's start with our boots. First of all, when you're back there, make sure that you discussed it with him, that you're standing back there so you don't surprise him, especially if you're working on a new horse. So the first thing that you want to do is to check and make sure that there isn't any dirt or sand on his leg, because if there's any dirt or sand that could cause an abrasion underneath the bandage or the wrap, then we could be creating some problems. So once you find that out, I'm going to have you put on this bandage, this bandage boot, excuse me, and this is very typical of what I see when I start to go and do some teaching in clinics, and this boot is put on incorrectly. And would you get the correct boot, Melissa, and then we'll show the difference of why that's incorrect. You can bring both of them. So you're going to put the left front boot on properly this time. So you want to make sure that the bandage, whether it's being a bandage or a boot, the straps are on the outside and they are aiming from front to back. That's correct. And show the inside of that boot also, Melissa, the other one. Take the one off and show how the leather of that boot is conformed to the fetlock. You see at the back of the little L there aims towards the back of the fetlock. So put that one on correctly one more time. We want to make sure that the elastic strap is even pressure and they are parallel to each other, and that it's just below the knee, and that the outside of the boot is around just above the middle of the fetlock. You can put your hand down on the inside of that boot, Melissa. So the inside is longer and that extends down to the fattest part of the fetlock. And that's how you're going to judge what size boot that you need for your horse. So would you put that other one on again for me incorrectly? Because I can't tell you how many times I've had to readjust boots at a clinic or teaching lessons, where now you can see that she's pulling the elastic from back to front, and you can see that little L of the leather pattern is actually coming around the front. It's not going around the back of the ankle, which is where they're prone to hitting themselves. So this is incorrect. Thanks, Melissa.
And how tight would you put those boots on?
How tight? You don't want them to slip up and down, but you definitely don't want a really pulled tension. That can cause what you were talking about earlier, a bandage bow or a pressure bump. So just enough elasticity, and it might be a little trial and error that you put it on first. If it starts to slip down, you'll know you'll need to go a little bit tighter. Always better to have it on the loose side than on too tight side.
Okay.
Okay. So let's look at the other kind of boot that we have, Melissa, and we'll put that one on correctly. And I'm showing this one, it goes the same way as the other one, but I'm showing this one because it has 4 straps, not just 2. And you can tell they're sticky and they're new, so you really have to make sure that you put them away properly so that they don't get full of hair and grass. And what I want to show you with these 4 elastic straps is that they're all the same even pressure and they are all parallel to each other. Now, the first thing I notice on that boot, Melissa, is that there's a little gap at the bottom, okay? So that tells me that this boot is too small for him, okay? There should not be any overlap or under gap there where there's different pressure from each. So that's a good demonstration. The height is almost okay, but they're actually not wide enough for him, so that you can point that out again, that little gap there. That should come all the way down equal from top to bottom. So that's a good thing to look at when you're trying on boots or you're measuring your horse for boots. You want to make sure that they line up parallel to each other and there are no gaps or big overlaps.